Hello everyone, Just Goran here and welcome back to another Planet Zoo real life inspiration video. Today we are looking at the clouded leopard from the Southeast Asia Animal Park. Oh my god, this footage is making me yawn. This clouded leopard has the right idea, just going in for a stretch and going right back to sleep. Let's get started right away with the first zoo, Parc Animalier de Bouillon. And over here we can see the back of the clouded leopard enclosure, which is this meshed over structure. You'll probably hear me say that a lot. Over here you can see part of the mesh structure is actually a squirrel monkey and a goody enclosure. And as we get to the other side over here, you see the clouded leopard enclosure, and it's fine. Space-wise, it's comparable to other things we'll see this episode. It's mainly just the visitor experience here that's not the best. There's this really dark part of the enclosure, so it's really hard to actually see the clouded leopard. And what's making it even more difficult is that we have this double mesh, which just doesn't quite make sense to me. Like, I can put my camera up to part of the mesh so you can see the enclosure a little bit better. There's some climbing structures, there's some things for them. It's honestly fine, but yeah, just really hard to actually see the leopards. Anyway, next up we have Zoo Dortmund, where we also have a meshed over structure. Well, who would have thought? It's really nicely surrounded by all sorts of foliage, really giving it this tropical vibe. As we walk up to it, we can see a elevated viewing point, which we'll have a look at in a little bit. We can see the layout of this enclosure is actually very similar to the Jaguar enclosure of Zoo Dortmund, where we have two outdoor yards on either side of the indoor area, with on either side also these viewing points of the outdoor enclosure. So you can see it's nice and lush, there's lots of foliage and things. We also, of course, can look into the indoor area, so you can see kind of what that looks like over here. And there's even a clouded leopard using one of the kind of perched nest boxes, I guess you could call them. And as we move to the left over here, there's even more view of the second outdoor enclosure. You can again see all sorts of climbing structures and foliage around. You can also stand over here underneath that elevated viewing point, and I love that you have these windows angled upwards, allowing you to look up into the enclosure and also see the clouded leopards climbing around, even if you're in like a wheelchair and you can't make use of the elevated viewing point. So as we move around this sign over here, which talks about all things clouded leopard, and then we take the stairs up to the elevated viewing point, which is just so inspiring to me. I absolutely loved this so much. You can even see a clouded leopard was sleeping up here, and you just get this kind of, you're at their level when they're in the trees. I just really love that. There's not much else to say here. And to achieve this, the habitat itself has of course been given a lot of height, which I also really appreciate for the clouded leopards. It actually gives them the opportunity to climb around so much. I love it. Anyway, next up, Zoo-Duisburg. We've got this little stone viewing area in the same theme as other things around this area, namely the spectacled bears. And we can see again we have a meshed over structure, very straight compared to the one we just saw in Dortmund. Yeah, this one's definitely kind of a box, but they have planted a bunch of foliage around it, giving it a more lush rainforest feel. There's also some of these viewing points that don't have the little hut in front of them, so it's a bit more difficult to look through them, and we can see some staff paths going into the enclosure over there. And we can also see, even in the winter here, it's still pretty lush around the enclosure, so they definitely tried their best to make it all look very pretty and tropical. And yeah, I think they did a pretty good job. It's definitely a decent enclosure, but I just don't have that much else to say about it. So let's move on to the next zoo, which is going to be the zoo Ouwehands Dierenpark in Renen. And again, we can see a meshed over structure. Are you starting to notice a pattern here with the clouded leopards? We again got a little viewing hut over here, not doing the best job at blocking external light because it's still coming in from both sides of the hut here, but if you get close enough up to the glass, you can still look inside. Interestingly, we can see a camera. We can see the clouded leopard kind of up in this perched resting area. There's a lot of those. Yeah, a lot of leopards and big cats just love being at elevated positions. You can also see that over here from a different day where I did see the clouded leopard a bit better than when they were up in that spot. I think the ones up there might have actually been the juveniles. Ouwehands is the only zoo that I have visited that had juvenile clouded leopards while I was visiting it, and I never saw them, which is a big pity. But anyway, as we move outside, we can see more of the mesh structure over here. It's got a bit more interesting shape. It's not just a box, and we've got some nice glass viewing points as well. The inside of it is very lush. There is a rock facade in the back, which also gives the leopards opportunities to perch on top. And there is a lot of foliage, mainly bamboo over here, keeping the enclosure nice and lush throughout the year, and also giving lots of opportunities for the leopards to hide, which is probably why I rarely ever see them here, which is probably nice for the leopards, just a little bit less nice for me. But yeah, the enclosure is really cool looking. I really like the vibe of it. Here we just have one last little overview of the entire thing from a bit more of a distance and a bit less people in front. That's going to be it for Ouwehands. Let's move on to Pairi Daiza, where we are entering a flying fox habitat, a walk-through flying fox habitat with a viewing point to the clouded leopards. But first, I was wondering, are people actually interested in a flying fox or a bat real-life inspiration video? Let me know in the comments, because I don't do exhibit animals, but they're in the walkthrough. So anyway, as we turn around, we have a clouded leopard enclosure over here, and it's fine. Like, that's all I have to say about it. It's not really any better than anything else we've seen in this video. In fact, I don't quite like how it's only an indoor habitat. There's no outdoor part to it. Sure, they can probably crack open some windows and the animals don't care that much, but I don't know. It's not the biggest fan of this one. There is a lot of climbing frames. It looks pretty cool, but that's really all there is to it. So let's move on to the next zoo, which is Pakawi Park. And yeah, it's not going to get much better here, as you might expect. So we've got these two buildings with a mesh structure in the middle, which is the clouded leopard enclosure. It is actually quite nice and lush, and there is some nice climbing opportunities for them. Strangely, the building to the right of it is not part of the enclosure. That's actually the indoor area for the colobus monkey, or something similar to that. We can see the clouded leopard over there. This was actually the first time seeing clouded leopards for me, so naturally I didn't think it counted because it was Pakawi. Yeah, the animals don't really have much of a place to hide in this enclosure, which did not sit right with me at the time. Over here we can see a bunch of education. You can definitely tell a lot of education about clouded leopards focuses on their teeth. They are the big cat with the largest like teeth to body ratio sort of thing. And we can see some indoor area. Not the greatest, but definitely interesting. I do like that Pakawi doesn't shy away from indoor areas and stuff like that. Anyway, over here in Wuppertal, again, not the greatest enclosure. I would say it's a bit dated. We've got these mesh structure that are part of the big cat house. We can see two of them, the one on the left and the right, are both for the clouded leopards. There's some hammocks, there is some climbing structures, but other than that, there is not much to these enclosures in terms of planting and stuff like that. Of course, it is winter, but still, if you look inside, you can tell there is not much in there. It's very lackluster. It's not that big either. Yeah, I don't know, not the biggest fan of this one. You can once again go inside and see more of their indoor habitat. Both of these indoor areas we can see right now are for the clouded leopards. But yeah, again, this is not too big. There is some verticality to it, which is nice, but yeah, not the greatest over here. Not the biggest fan of this one. So let's quickly move on to probably my favorite habitat. It's also the last one for this video. We are entering Dierenpark Zie-Zoo, and over here we're in this super lush bamboo area, and in between all the bamboo we've got this clouded leopard enclosure, which is built up out of several kind of hexagonal cages that are really vertical. They go up really quite high, and because of their unique shape, because of all those hexagonal shapes, you're kind of walking in between them, weaving through them. It really feels like they're kind of part of the jungle in a way. It's a lot more playful and interesting. It would be nice if there was a bit more glass as opposed to just mesh, I guess, although there probably would be a lot of reflection as well, judging by the amount of sunlight. But it also doesn't let you get really close up to the clouded leopards if they decide to go for a stroll. And the first time I was at the zoo, they kind of stayed inside, but I think it was a lot colder back then. So maybe you do have a good chance to see them when it's nice and hot out, like it was on the day I was here. But yeah, it was just super cool following the clouded leopard around, seeing them kind of go in and out of their backstage over here, which you can kind of get a small peek into, but also just yeah, I just love the lushness and the tropical vibe of this enclosure. It really captures that really, really well. You can also see they have a bit of a perch all the way in the nook of that tall mesh structure, and here you can see more of the enclosure as well. There is a glass viewing point at least, with a small hut around. There's some education about the stud books, which Zie-Zoo participates in. They recently also became an ESA member. So yeah, really cool. The only thing I would say is I still feel like this enclosure could be a little bit bigger, but the verticality definitely benefits it a lot, and I just love the idea of it. It's very inspirational to me. Hope it was also to you, but that is going to be it for this video. I hope you got some clouded leopard inspiration. I will see you in the next real life inspiration video. Hope you enjoyed. See you then. Bye bye. Become a member. Stuff like that. See you.